Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Friday, March 15th, little afternoon show for y'all. If you're enjoying the TPC this weekend, hopefully y'all have a lot of fun. Be safe out there. Hope everybody has a fun weekend. But we're going to dive into some wide receivers that I think make sense for the Jaguars in round one. This is kind of a nuanced topic with wide receiver in round one. Will Trent Baalke even consider taking a wide receiver that early when he has Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram at tight end, who's a receiver as well? All these guys that he's paying money to, will he consider taking a receiver that early? I really have no clue. He has not done it since I was in college, and I'm 32 years old. So it's been a long time since he's trying to take a wide receiver in the first round. In fact, he's only taken one wide receiver in the first round ever. It was A.J. Jenkins, who is a Duval native. It did not work out in San Francisco. And he's only taken one wide receiver on the first 2 days of the draft that one time. Like, this is a guy that does not like to draft the wide receiver position, does not like to rely on the draft for the wide receiver position. But when you look at all the talent that is in this 2024 NFL draft class at wide receiver, and pretty much every year now, the wide receiver classes are just loaded. I think Trent Baalke needs to eventually change his spots in this regard, because the Jaguars, they need someone who can become an alpha wide receiver. They cannot pay receivers the way they currently are forever. They have the benefit right now of Trevor Lawrence being on that rookie deal. But the bill is eventually going to come due at the wide receiver spot. You're going to have to pay Trevor a lot of money and be more particular, be more prudent with how you spend your money elsewhere to surround Trevor Lawrence with talent. So in my opinion, drafting someone this year that could become a true number one that has the talent to do that would really help out the Jaguars, especially long-term, but it would even help them out short-term, right? Because you get a talented player in here to supplement what you have. Again, you have Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, who kind of feast from the slot. You have Gabe Davis now. You need another outside receiver. I mean, Zay Jones can get the job done for you. To me, he's a wide receiver 3 type in the NFL. Gabe Davis, a wide receiver 2. But again, you don't want to be paying these guys forever. I like all their skill sets overall. I think that they can add value to the team, but you have got to find younger, cheaper talent at that position at some point in the near future, in my opinion. I think 2024 would be a great year to do it. I'm not all in on the idea of like they have to take a wide receiver in round one. I know some people have talked about that. I don't believe that. I think that they can survive without taking a wide receiver in round one. But would I be good with it? Yeah, absolutely. And there's some receivers out there that I would be a big fan of potentially adding in round one. Again, not the only course that the Jaguars can take and have a successful draft, have a successful 2024 season and beyond, but there's definitely some receivers I'd be a fan of them taking at 17 overall or at some point in the first round. In fact, there's 7 pass catchers that I would be good with them taking at 17 overall. 7 different guys. One of them might not be a receiver. We'll talk about it though. But let's look at these prospects, right? That would make sense, in my opinion, for the Jaguars in the first round at wide receiver. If you enjoy the content here, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Really helps us out. So the top 3 wide receivers, they're clearly going to be off the board, in my opinion, unless the Jaguars trade up pretty high, pretty significantly high. Probably have to get into the top 10. Those guys would be amazing, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. Yeah, they would change the equation for the Jaguars on offense in a big way. They absolutely would. But I don't think any of them are really realistic, again, unless the Jaguars are going to kind of try to trade the farm to get up and take one of them. If one of them fell down below 10, maybe the Jaguars could have a reasonable trade up. But I think there'd be a lot of teams that would be lining up to land one of those guys if they fell a little bit further than expected. But there are 3 names here at wide receiver that I think have a legitimate chance of being available at 17 that I think have potential wide receiver 1 alpha ability. And one thing I love about this situation the Jaguars are in, they don't have to have someone that will perform at that level right away. They can draft someone and they don't have to be thrust into this role where they're this high volume pass catcher in year 1. because they have Gabe Davis, they have Christian Kirk, they have Evan Ingram, and even Zay Jones right now as guys who can all be featured weapons in a certain week, right? Like Christian Kirk, he's going to be a high volume receiver. Evan Ingram, going to be a high volume receiver. Gabe Davis probably will be as well. And Zay Jones has shown that certain weeks, certain matchups, he can do that as well when he's fully healthy. So again, none of these guys has to come in and be that dude immediately. But there are 3 guys right here that I want to talk about. Adonai Mitchell. I really don't have any major questions about his game. I would like to see him continue to add strength, continue to add mass on his frame, but he can play big boy football. I mean, he's 6'2", 205 pounds, big, fast as hell, 4.3 40, very athletic overall, flexible. He's got body control, consistent hands. He can adjust to the ball well down the field, track the ball down the field. He can go up and get it in contested situations. He's got the release packages. He's got the route running. I'm all about Adonai Mitchell, and I was in on him early. I had him as an early to mid first round guy well before the combine. And that combine, that kind of just validated what you saw. Again, the size, the length, the 4.34 40-yard dash, the 39.5-inch vert, 11.4 broad. Adonai Mitchell has it all. And I think that as a outside receiver, you can use him. Texas primarily used him down the field, but I think he has more to his game. But even if that's what you want to do with him in year one, that works, right? Because you got these guys that can feast underneath. You got Gabe Davis on the other side that can take attention away from him. And I think it'd be a perfect role for him. Another one here, Keon Coleman. And he's probably the one that people have the most debate about. Like there's a lot of concern for some around Keon Coleman. I don't really have that concern. I have him rated very highly in this draft. He's not as fast on a track as some of these other dudes, but he plays fast as hell. He's insanely physical on the football field, super strong hands, maybe the best hands in this class, very good contested catcher, 3-level threat type of guy. You don't see dudes his size, right? He is a huge receiver that have the twitchiness and explosiveness that he has on the field. He makes people miss in space. You just don't see guys with his level of size and physicality that can also make people miss in space all that often. And his gauntlet for me was validation of everything I've seen. I trust the gauntlet at the combine. Guys that know how to run and catch and are confident in their hands can ace that drill, and he absolutely aced the drill. A lot of receivers did not, but he did. He looked so comfortable. He had the fastest timed speed of anyone in the gauntlet at wide receiver, despite running, a 4.6 40-yard dash. So I think Keon Coleman would be a fantastic addition to this offense. I think he's a guy that brings a skill set with the hands that he has, with the physicality, the contested catch ability that he has that you don't really have on this offense right now. So I'd be in on Keon Coleman. I know not everybody would. I know that's a touchy subject, but I think Keon Coleman's going to be a star in this league. Brian Thomas Jr., maybe the most upside of anybody we've talked about here. And there was a while where I kind of was just like, gosh, there's just so many questions about Brian Thomas Jr. that I don't have answers to. And there still kind of are, because his usage at LSU was limited to pretty much the vertical plane. He did not do a lot else. But I'm at the point where with the Jaguars wide receiver core, I think it would be a good fit because, again, I mentioned this before, he doesn't have to be this all-around elite wide receiver one from the jump. He can do what he does well and then develop the rest of his game. There's no pressure to be a complete, well-rounded wide receiver from day one, in my opinion. But, again, maybe the most upside of any receiver in this class at 6'3" and 209 pounds, a freak athlete, 4.33 40-yard dash, 1.5-10 split, 38.5-inch vert, 10.6 broad jump. He led college football in touchdown grabs last year. His usage, again, was limited at LSU to kind of that vertical plane. But I think that he can thrive in the Jaguars offense. Again, no pressure to be that dude right away. You establish a role for him in your offense, the vertical type of stuff, the go routes, the hitches. I think you can even get him going on some screens. I think you can also get him going horizontally across the field. I feel very confident in that, even though LSU didn't do it a lot. But establish a role for him, and you don't have to have him as this high volume, every down, you're targeting him type of guy. You don't have to do that with any of these guys. But teams will have to respect the size and speed element that a Brian Thomas Jr. or an Adonai Mitchell bring to the field, and he will open up things for the rest of these guys. There's no question about that in my mind. Brock Bowers. I mentioned one of the guys at 17 I'd be good with that's not a wide receiver technically, but is a number one target at the NFL level, in my opinion. You move him everywhere, and you funnel him the football. You put him in motion, in the slot, out wide, in line, in the backfield. He is an offensive engine in the NFL, in my opinion. He has great speed and fluidity at his size, like unbelievable straight line speed at his size, but also very twitchy, can get in and out of his breaks, run routes at a high level. Tremendous athlete with great hands, embraces physicality, can make plays at all three levels, can block for you as well. He should not fall to 17, but if he does, I'd be all over it. There's no way he falls to 17 though, right? We'll see. Now, one other guy I wanted to touch on in the first round, potentially in a trade down scenario. Like, I would not take him at 17. But if you're talking about trading down, past 25 and between that 25 and 32 range, I could get on board with Ladd McConkey too. In a Doug Peterson offense where it will be difficult to get him pressed up a ton, because I do think that's where he could struggle. If you just put him on the outside on an island against some of these big physical corners, man cover corners, I do think that there could be some difficulty with him getting off the line of scrimmage and playing through that physicality. But again, I think Doug Peterson with his offense, he has the ability to kind of scheme you out of that type of look on the defensive side of the ball. Again, get McConkey moving around the formation. I think he could feast in Doug Peterson's offense. He has a skill set similar to Calvin Ridley's, in my opinion, but he's probably a little bit better athlete overall. He's shown more reliable hands. I think he could come in and play that same exact role you had Calvin Ridley in last year, do it a lot cheaper, obviously, and maybe do it even better than Calvin could. I really respect Ladd McConkey's game. I don't have a first round grade on him. It's an early second round grade for me right now for Ladd McConkey. But if you're talking about trading down into the mid to late 20s and all those other guys we talked about are gone, and you land him and you add another valuable pick or two in that trade down, I could definitely get on board with that if you wanted to bring in Ladd McConkey. When I'm looking at what will happen, I still think cornerback might be more likely in round one. Again, looking at Trent Baalke's track record, he just does not want to draft wide receivers early. And maybe, sounds like they still could be in on trading for another wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, Mia O'Brien reported that there's mutual interest between the Jaguars and Brandon Ayuk. And I think that would be a home run type of trade, potentially, between the Jaguars and 49ers, landing somebody of his talent level. But again, you're paying for it. Brandon Ayuk needs to get a new contract, and he needs to be paid like one of the top receivers in the NFL, because that's what he is right now. So I really like the idea potentially of landing one of these guys in round one. We'll see how it goes, but a wide receiver should come off the board early for the Jaguars. There's no question about that in my mind. Will Trent Baalke get it done? We will see. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate y'all. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Y'all have a good weekend.